The United States has undergone a cultural, moral, and religious revolution. And a militant secularism has arisen in this country. It's always had a hold on the intellectual and academic elites. But in the 1960s, it captured the young in the universities and the colleges, and we had this great battle, cultural war begin then nationally. And since then, if you will, secularism has really achieved dominance in the academic community and the intellectual community and the entertainment community in Hollywood, among part of the political community, but not the nation as a whole. However, it is much stronger than it was, and so this is the basis of the great cultural war we're undergoing right now. And this militant, it is an anti-Christian, anti-God, anti-traditionalist revolution. It's partly the sexual revolution has a lot to do with it and how people live. And so we are two countries now. We are two countries morally and socially and culturally and theologically, and cultural wars do not lend themselves to peaceful coexistence. One side prevails or the other prevails, and the truth is that while the conservatives, in my judgment, we won the Cold War with political and economic communism, we've lost the cultural war with cultural Marxism, which I think has prevailed pretty much in the United States, or is now the dominant culture, whereas those of us who are traditionalists, we are, if you will, the counterculture.
So Pat Buchanan is correct, of course. And as I discussed in yesterday's video, the three pillars of our culture that have been hijacked seem to be the mainstream media, academia, and Hollywood, which we knew based upon the intentions, the stated intentions of the Frankfurt School. There is no doubt that the mainstream media is lending credibility and encouraging these masked Marxists to attack Trump supporters. Look at how the mainstream media treated protesters at Berkeley, and comparatively how they blamed Milo and people on the right for this leftist violence.
This is from a CNN Twitter feed. Extremist Milo Yiannopoulos, whose Berkeley event sparked protests, takes on the college establishment and rallies white supremacists. This is the New York Times headline over the story about what happened last night. This is today. Berkeley cancels Milo Yiannopoulos' speech and Donald Trump tweets outrage. No mention of the fact that you were shut down by a mob. And this is the first line. A speech by the divisive right-wing writer Milo Yiannopoulos, University of California, Berkeley,
they're trying to insinuate. I mean, Bloomberg did the same thing. They said Milo Yiannopoulos sparks riots. You know, I was like, hang on a second now.
It's very obvious now that the mainstream media has no intention of compromising, but I think they will buckle under the weight of their own lies and their own incompetence. Additionally, their days are numbered because of their really old audience. I think at Fox, it's like 68. The average age of their viewers is 68. It's around 61 for CNN. And their allegiance to Hillary during the election cycle just detonated their credibility permanently, I think. The influence and power is clearly shifting to the alternative media, and there is nothing that is going to stop this. So we don't really need to do anything about the mainstream media because we have developed our own platforms already. With no work from us, we will see Fox and ABC and MSNBC and CNN try to bulk up their online platforms and their YouTube channels, but see paltry success, especially in terms of resource investment, compared to individual YouTubers. And they will be unsuccessful because it will split their audience, which is largely like old people, most of whom are not internet savvy, especially in the way millennials are. They're not like on 4chan or anything like that. And they don't really have a deep understanding of the platform like even a lowly YouTuber does. Hollywood faces some of the same issues as the mainstream media, but barriers to entry are low, especially as Hollywood elites like Meryl Streep continue to alienate their audience. All you really need is a laptop and some talent, and you can release something, really good. There must be like 20 actors, directors, and producers that I have just boycotted for life based on this election season. I know that I am not alone in this. I hear people complaining about this all the time. In the meantime, hilarious red pill shows like Rick and Morty keep popping up, which isn't filled with this leftist propaganda and Hollywood guest spots like The Simpsons is. I think we can topple Hollywood by a complete withdrawal of our support. I mean, I'm pretty bummed about losing Stranger Things, but I think I'll manage. And we can put out our own shows and influence the culture in that way as well. Academia is what I'm most concerned about. We are still seeing these idiot Marxists being churned out at an incredible rate. You still need a college education to get a good job. And I was, completely indoctrinated when I went to Mizzou. And so I'm very worried about this because the learning centers, the higher institutions, that's really where we need to have a traditional conservative influence. But I hypothesize that this might be like the mainstream media and Hollywood in that it may take care of itself. And what I mean by that is that we're seeing people come out of schools like NYU, which I talked about a little bit in my video yesterday, with liberal arts degrees that cost them $200,000 in money that they didn't have. And now they can't get a job. So this is not something that is sustainable. And at some point, the higher education bubble is going to burst. And what that will do is it will drive people back into trade school. And it looks like we are going to have lots of jobs in manufacturing return, and there might be a real need for some of these more tangible skill sets. And so we might see a return to traditionalism in that women are not going to school to get these worthless liberal arts degrees and going into the workforce. Instead, maybe people will be able to raise a family again with one laborer's income. And that would just naturally encourage people to move into a life of traditionalism. And another reason I think this may resolve itself is that a lot of these institutions like Berkeley, they subsist on a tremendous amount of federal funding, all the while not upholding constitutional values in their schools. And so if that federal funding is pulled, there's just no way they're going to have to cut the fat. I realized something when I was making these last few videos. I don't think that there is any way that Marxists can exist inside of a democracy or a constitutional republic. Because the individualistic person has a worldview rooted in independence and self-sufficiency, while the Marxists can only exist as part of a collective. Their default position is stripping a smarter, more fit person of his wealth. So in any given society where capitalists live amongst Marxists, the latter will always be a draining force on the former. So how can you accommodate both of those completely contradictory worldviews in a single government? I don't think that you can. So thank you for watching, and if you have any ideas of what we can do to influence this culture war, please leave them in the comments. I always read the comments, and I will see you guys soon. Thanks. Bye.